Hey everyone, Chris here, and welcome to my channel. As you can see by my setup, it's time to play Phase 10 Chooses My TBR. So it is time for my very first Phase 10 Chooses My TBR of 2024. I can't believe that it is already time to play the first TBR of 2024. Crazy how time flies. I'm very excited to get into this, but a few things before I do. The first being I am doing Buzzwordathon once again this year. And the theme for January is there, there, and there. So I will be reading Once There Were Wolves. This is literally the only book that I own on my TBR that contains there, there, there in it. So it was really my only option. And I believe this is kind of a mystery thriller book. And I know that we're following a woman and her sister who are headed to Alaska. And they're reintroducing gray wolves. And it says it's an unforgettable story of a woman desperate to save the creatures she loves if she isn't consumed by a wild that was once her refuge. So I don't really want to know more about it. Hopefully I really, really enjoy this one. And like I said, it was the only book I had on my TBR that fulfilled the prompt, like my physical TBR. So we'll see how this one goes. I'm also continuing to participate in the middle grade March book club. And the pick for this month is The Winter King. And I've requested it from my library. I don't have it yet. But it says, a village trapped in winter, a tyrannical god, and a girl who will do anything to keep her family alive. Ever since Cora's father disappeared through the ice, whispers about her family's curse have grown increasingly louder. Desperate to help her mother and siblings survive another bleak season in the Winter King's frozen grasp, Cora begins to bend and even break the rules she has kept since she was a little girl. But when she discovers a secret that's much bigger than herself, she realizes too late that she has put herself and those she loves in even greater peril. It sounded interesting, so we'll see how this goes. This is the last middle grade March book club pick until after the readathon. They take February off to prep for the readathon. Obviously, March is the readathon itself, and then they take off April so that they can kind of recharge. So I'm quite excited to see how this last book turns out before we focus on middle grade March. The other thing I need to mention is that January is the second round of my own readathon. So I created a readathon loosely based on my TBR game called Phase Out Your TBR. I'll link the announcement video for Phase 2 in the cards. I think it's up here. And like I said, we're doing Phase 2, so we will be focusing on trying to pick out books that complete the second phase of Phase 10 using a TBR that you're trying to work yourself through. So check that out. And I will also mention that I have filmed a TBR video for Phase Out Your TBR. I'm going to be trying to get some of those on here so that I can kind of double up. We'll see how that goes. But if you want to see my TBR video for that and to see how the game treated me for round 2, because I basically play a very similar version of this in that, I'll link that up in the cards as well. I think those are all the obligation reads I need to mention. So now on to my nonfiction, considering I really like doing that, and I'm going to continue it this year. I have chosen to read Losing Isn't Everything by Kurt Menefee. This focuses on untold stories and hidden losses in sports history. It is the lowest rated book on my TBR. I'm betting you can figure out why I've chosen it for my nonfiction if you really think. But I figured this was as good a time as any to stick it on my TBR and get through it. Hopefully, I enjoy it more than some of the other people who have rated it, given how low a rating it has. And that brings me to this lovely little thing. So this is my TBR Jar of Doom. I'm continuing on with this year. I'm going to pull 3 series out of here, and we're going to see if I can make some progress in them in January. Got an orange one. Oh, we're losing papers. A purple one. And let's go all the way to the bottom. Another orange one. And there are papers everywhere. And our first series is Port Danby by London Lovett. Let me see if I can get the next book in this series. So I do not have access to that one without buying the next book in the series, and I am not buying the next book right now, so I'm going to pick something else, and I'll leave that one out until I have access to the next book. And we'll go with this purple one. Oh, this I should be able to do. The Magical Misfits by Neil Patrick Harris. This one I can do. The second book is called The Second Story, and it follows a group of 6 kids who are really into magic and use the illusions that they have learned to solve mysteries. I remember liking the first book but not loving it, but wanting to see where the story went. So it should be an easy read if it reads the way the first book does, and if my memory is correct on the way I'm remembering the first book. So this will be my first series to continue in 2024. Okay, so next I pulled this little purple piece of paper, and we have... Oh, I'm happy with this. Ghost of Granny Apples by Sue Ann Jafarian. This is definitely a good pick. So the next book in this series is Ghost and the Guacamole, and this follows Emma, who in the very first book realizes that she has the ability to hear and see ghosts when her many times removed great-grandmother, Granny Apples, contacts her and asks for her help clearing her name because Granny Apples was said to have murdered her husband, and she knows that's not true. So she wants Emma to clear her name. I've really enjoyed this series, and I keep forgetting I have it because it is a book I own on ebook. So when I'm looking at my shelves, it never pops into my head because I don't have the physical book in front of me. So this is absolutely perfect, and I'm almost caught up in this series. This is book 5. There are 6 books in the series, and I think I have a couple more novellas. So absolutely thrilled that this came out of my TBR jar. And then the last one is The Devouring Wolf by Natalie C. Parker. Let me see if I can get the second book in this series, because this is a series I started in my spooky vlog. I'll link that in the cards above if you want to check it out. And I believe book 2 is out. We just have to see if I can get a hold of it. I believe the second book is called The Nameless Witch, and I've requested it from my library, but there's only one copy, and I'm now in line. So I may or may not be able to get this in January. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw out another series and use that one instead of The Devouring Wolf, but it is definitely going to get read in the nearest future because as soon as it is available at my library, I will be getting it. So let's replace that with this one. And we have Twisted Tales by various authors. So these are retellings of classic fairy tales that you know and love, but with twists. And I've enjoyed some of them more than others. I don't know whose story I'm on. Let me go find out. So the next book in this series is Go the Distance, and it says, what if Meg had to become a god? So this is a spin on Hercules, and this is going to be interesting, because if I've seen the Disney movie version of this, it would have been when I was a child. I've seen, like, clips and GIFs and stuff like that, but I don't know that I've ever actually watched the actual movie. So this book could go really well for me, or it could not. We're going to see. But this is the next book in that series, and I'm pretty happy with that. So I will be continuing The Magic Misfits, Twisted Tales, and The Ghost of Granny Apples in January, and then maybe The Devouring Wolf if I can happen to get that one from the library in January as well. Pretty happy with that. All of my pieces of paper from the floor, I believe, are back in here, as are the series that I pulled out that I have more books in the series for, so they can maybe come out again. And we get to put this away until next month when we get to see what sort of fun it has in store for me. So with that out of the way, we can dive into this. The first thing I need to mention is that I have not finished my TBR, and it is December 26th, and I don't think I'm going to. I lean towards no, and rather than put the pressure on myself by putting a reward on the board, I am going to give myself a punishment, because I just don't think I'm going to finish it in this way. If I don't have to feel guilty, and if I do, well, then I got lucky. So, we're going to pick a random card, and I have the whole deck to choose from for my punishment. And it'll be a wild. I can put it wherever I want. Okay, what am I feeling like I am not going to draw this month? Let's go yellow 8. Yellow 8. And I have my punishment prompts here. And some of these are very, 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 very bad, so I don't want to pull them. And we'll go with this one here. So if I pull a yellow 8 and I can't use it as part of my phase, I have to do a punishment prompt, and I really, really, really don't want to. I have no idea what I will do if I manage to actually finish my TBR, but at least this way I feel like I don't have a lot of pressure hanging over my head to finish my TBR because I rewarded myself when I shouldn't have. And I have like 7 books or something ridiculous, and I get the feeling I'm not going to finish them. So I have mixed that prompt back in. Let's give the card a quick shuffle, because we would want me to have a possibility of pulling that wild, right? I mean, the more wilds, the better, right, everybody? I mean, they're so nice to me, and they give me lots of extra books, and it's not like there's a dangerous punishment on the board that could tell me to throw out my entire TBR and start over, or that I am not allowed to read any books in series or things like that. So, yeah. Okay. So, I have doled out my 10 cards. I'll be right back when I have them on the board to set up for phase 4. So, I've got the board set up now, and I'm going for a run of 7. And I just lost a card. This 3 is trying to escape. I heard it fall. Stay. So, I'm going for a run of 7. And right now, I think my best shot at that is to go 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. And it means that I can use that yellow 8 and take one possibility of pulling this out of the deck. So I'm, of course, going to go for that. So I can still get this because there is 2 yellow 8s in the deck. So even though I have one of them up here, the other one isn't here somewhere. So that is quite exciting, but we're gonna see how it goes, and yeah, it's time to get into the game. Draw number 1 is a yellow 11. I definitely don't need a yellow 11. The prompt for yellow 11 is a reread. So for reread, I'm going to do the Magic Misfits, which is the first book in the Magic Misfits series. And yes, I did pull the second one out of my TBR jar. I think that since I have been given a reread prompt, I should reread the first book, because I know I read it and I have vague memories of reading it, but I think I will enjoy book 2 more if I've reread the first one. So since my TBR game is kind of giving me a sign, I think that that is going to be the book I choose to use for my reread prompt. Draw number 2 is a green 10, and I can absolutely use a green 10. Just gonna slot you. Oh, wait, no, we want you over here. And yes, I know they're overlapping, and I think we'll stick with the theme of 11s. And we'll go with a red 11. The prompt for red 11 is adult. For this, I'm going to go with Once There Were Wolves. This is my Buzzwordathon pick, so since I have to read it anyways this month, I have found a prompt that it works for, so I might as well utilize it. Draw number 3 is a yellow 7. I almost picked yellow 7, guys. You have no idea. Very glad I didn't. Yellow 7 is a booktuber fave. So for this, I'm going to read Grey Sister, which is the second book in the Book of the Ancestor series by Mark Lawrence. And this is a trilogy that Cassidy from Covers with Cassidy absolutely loves. So I would say this is a booktuber fave because this is a fave of hers. I read the first book and quite enjoyed it, and I believe it involves assassin nuns. I've been meaning to get to the second book. I actually took it out of the library in the hopes that I would get to it in December. But I didn't, so I think I will put it on my January TBR to kind of make it a priority for January. Draw number 4. And we're starting the year off with a wild, because of course we are. Might as well get this down here all ready to be rolled. Draw number 4, part 2. It's a green 2. I do not need a green 2. Oh, I got excited there for a second. I thought that was a reward. It's a green 3. Oh. The prompt is old favorite author. So for old favorite author, I bet you can all guess who I'm going to pick. Aaron Hunter! This is the ultimate guide. It is an illustrated version. It's got all sorts of interesting tidbits about the clans, and I'm just so very, very excited. This is an updated version. I don't believe I've read the original version yet, but we're going to read the updated version because I'm very, very excited to get to this. I love that it's in color. I'm so looking forward to seeing pictures of some of the very, very important cats in the series. I wonder if we have... Let me see if I can find one. No. That does not spoil anything. Here we have Spotted Leaf. And she is a very, very well-known cat in the Warriors universe in the first arc of 6. And I absolutely am excited to read more. And that is some gorgeous artwork. So this is going to be my book for Old Favorite Author. Draw number 5 is a yellow 5. So I need a run of 7, which would bring me down to 6. But to go out and move on to the next phase and get my extra reward for the board, I'm going to need a 5, because... yeah. We're going to hang on to this. And we're going to use this green 8. So the prompt for green 8 is green on the cover. So for green on the cover, I'm going with The Long Road by Christopher Holt. This is the 3rd book in the Last Dog series. And there is green all down here because we have leaves and what looks to be a crocodile, which if I'm the size of these dogs, I really don't want to come across a crocodile. This follows 3 dogs, Max, Rocky, and Gizmo, who are trying to find out where their humans have gone because they've disappeared. Really enjoyed the first 2 books, and I'm looking forward to continuing on with the series. Draw number 6 is a 9. This is going well. Okay. I will go with the red one. The prompt for red 1 is historical fiction not set during World War II. So for this, I'm going to read The Lost Year by Catherine Marsh. This is a middle grade survival story that traces a harrowing family secret back to Soviet Ukraine in the 1930s. We're going to be following 13-year-old Matthew, whose dad is stuck overseas and his mom has moved in with his 100-year-old great-grandmother to ride out COVID. And he ends up discovering a black and white photo and a clue to a hidden part of her past that will lead to a life-shattering family secret. And it sets in alternating timelines that connect the present day to the 30s and the US to the USSR. And it's going to shed fresh light on the Holodomor, the horrific famine that killed millions of Ukrainians, which the Soviet government covered up for decades. I've heard some good things about this, and I am very excited to check this out. And this is definitely not set during World War II, so it is perfect for this prompt. Draw number 7 is a yellow one. Let's see. The prompt for yellow 1 is historical fiction. I'm going to go with the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. This is set in January of 1946, and we're going to have writer Julia Ashton, who ends up communicating with a native of Guernsey, which is the British island once occupied by the Nazis. And they're going to exchange letters, and this is told in a letter-style format. This is a book I've heard rave reviews for, so I'm very excited to be finally getting to it, and I feel like because of the letter style, it should be a pretty fast read as well. Draw number 8 is a green 4. Do I need a 4? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I do. So we're going to stick this down here, and I'm going to take the 2 because I don't need the 2. So now all I need to complete my phase is a 6. So red 2 is a thriller or mystery. For this, I'm going to read Pretty Little Wife by Darby Kane. And it says, shouldn't a dead husband stay dead? And obviously it says there's more than one way to end a marriage. I don't know anything more about it. I don't want to know anything more. I like going into my thrillers blind. So we're going to see how this goes. This is a book I have contemplated putting on many a TBR, but never did. So I guess January 2024 is the time when I start to get to books that I hadn't planned on reading and keep putting off. Draw number 9 is a red 4. And the prompt for red 4 is one word title. So for this, I'm going to read Hollowthorn by Kayla Josephson. This is the sequel to Ravenfall, which is another book I read in my spooky vlog that I did at the end of October. It also, in November or December, came out of my TBR jar and I requested it from my library. And kind of like The Nameless Witch, it is one I ended up in line for and didn't know when I was going to get, but it is currently sitting in my library waiting for me. So I think I will get to it in January and get caught up on that series. So Hollowthorn it is. It's got some spooky vibes. There's a lot of family vibes. There's magic. And I'm very curious to see how these spooky vibes play out in this one, even though January isn't really spooky season for me anymore. And the last of our regular draws, unless this is a wild, draw number 10, is a yellow 2. So close, yet so far away. The prompt for yellow 2 is player's choice. So this means I can read whatever I want, but I do have to pick a book and add it to my TBR. And I think that I'm going to add Heartstopper Volume 5. This is a much anticipated read. I cannot wait to dive into this and find out what's happening to Nick and Charlie in this volume. There was no way I wasn't reading it. I would have gotten to it in December if I'd had the time. So there's no way I'm not reading it in January. So it seems like an absolute no-brainer to pick this for player's choice. So with that out of the way, I need to roll for my wild. And I'm hoping for literally anything but a 6. But the lower, the better. And our number is going to be a 6. No. No. That's not what I wanted. Oh, I forgot to replace that prompt. There we go. Okay, so wild 1, draw 1 is a green 5. And the prompt for green 5 is a random page generator. Okay, so I have a random number generator here between 50 pages and 1,000 pages. And see what number I have to try to get close to. 180. Well, this was nice to me. So, clocking in at 175 pages, according to Barnes & Noble's website, I'm going to be reading the Tuesday Night Survivors Club. I couldn't get anything closer, but I think within 5 pages it's pretty decent. It says, survivors become sleuths to find a missing member of their book club in New Age, Sedona, Arizona. 2 things got Rarity Jones through her breast cancer treatments, friends and books. Now cancer-free, Rarity is devoting her life to helping others find their way through the maze to healing. She's opened a bookstore focusing on the power of healing, Eastern medicine, Western medicine, the healing power of food, the power of meditation, and the importance of developing a support community. To that end, she's also started the Tuesday Night Survivors Book Club. With its openness to New Age communities, Sedona, Arizona is the perfect fit for Rarity's bookstore in this tightly knit group. But their therapeutic unity is disrupted when one of their members suddenly goes missing. Martha has always kept to herself, never opening up much of her personal life to the group. Now she's nowhere to be found. With her car abandoned on a trail and her dog left with a friend, Rarity is sure something terrible has happened. But will she be able to uncover Martha's secrets before it's too late? So this is another one of my ebooks, so this is fantastic news to be able to get another one of those on my TBR and have me focus on books that I tend to forget I own because, you know, out of sight, out of mind. Wild 1, draw 2. Say red 9. The prompt for red 9 is seasonal. So with it being winter in New York, I'm going to go with Brian's Winter. This is the 3rd book in the Hatchet series. I've never read the 3rd book before. I'd only just recently this past year read the 2nd book, so I'm very, very curious to see what happens. This follows Brian, who in the first book is on his way to go see his dad, and he's on this little plane with just him and the pilot, and the pilot has a massive heart attack and the plane crash lands. The pilot is dead, and Brian is stuck out in the wilderness and has to survive. I read it in like 6th or 7th grade and remember really enjoying it. I've reread it multiple times throughout the years, and last year I finally continued on with the series. So we're going to kick 2024 off with me continuing on with this series that I probably should have done a long time ago. Wild One, draw 3. It's a red 10. The prompt for red 10, no people on the cover. So for this, I'm going to read 15 Secrets to Survival by Natalie D. Richards. This says, when classmates Baxter, Abigail, Turner, and Emerson break a school rule, they're forced to travel to the middle of nowhere for an extra credit project. They think things can't get much worse. After all, how will learning to survive in the wilderness help them stay out of trouble in school? But what starts off as a weekend of team building takes a scary turn when their instructor goes missing and they are given nothing but pages of a survival guide to complete a series of challenges. They soon realize that the woods around them have unexpected surprises, but will they discover a way to work together to find their teacher? Navigating the wilderness with only pages of a survival guide and each other will force them to face their fears and use their talents. But this is also the story of the strength it takes to work together as a team that must overcome the dangers of winter in the mountains. So this sounded quite interesting. I think I saw a post about it on Instagram and ended up requesting it from the library. I got a copy, and I'm curious to see if it lives up to the hype. This is perfect for no people on the cover, given that the only thing on the cover is a moose. And I am hoping that I absolutely love this book and that it really sucks me in and gives me a nice little mystery to solve with these kids. Wild One, draw 4, is a blue 3. Over. Blue 3. Nonfiction. Well, you'll be shocked to hear that I'm going to read Losing Isn't Everything by Kurt Menefee, as this is my nonfiction pick for the month. So, absolutely shocking that I would choose to use it for nonfiction for my TBR game. Wild One, draw 5. It's red 11. We're almost there. The prompt for red 11, shortest book on my TBR. So I believe for this, I'm going to go with Mislaid in Parts Half Known. I think of all the books I'm hoping to get to this month, which is how I base my TBR, I don't usually use my whole physical TBR. I tend to focus on the books I hope to get to. So my want to read for the month of January TBR. And I believe this one is the shortest. It clocks in at 160 pages. This is the 9th book in the Wayward Children series. It comes out on, I want to say, the 9th. I absolutely want to read it. There are dinosaurs on the cover of this book. I am so incredibly stoked for this one. I have such high expectations, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it and dive in. So this is going to be the shortest book on my TBR. And then, for what is hopefully my final draw for January, and I want anything but a wild or a yellow 8. Wild 1. Draw 6. Oh, it's a wild. It's a wild, guys. It's a wild. Okay. Wild 1, draw 6, part 2. It's a yellow 10. I was so close to being scot-free. Yellow 10. The prompt for yellow 10. New to you author. For this, I'm going to read Galaxy Jones and the Space Pirates by Brianna McDonald. This follows Lexi, who is on the verge of losing it all when the royal family stops at the inn on their way to a neighboring star, and it leaves her dad's hopeful that they'll bring some good business. However, Prince Weston is going to throw a wrench in that plans, and he has stolen something from notorious pirates who hold all the adults hostage with the threat of destroying the inn if they can't find what they're looking for. So Lexi and Weston have to figure out if they can find what the pirates are after and save the inn in the process. This is a middle grade sci-fi because it's set in space, because space pirates, and it sounds quite interesting, and I'm very excited to get to it. I also feel like it'll be a nice little palate cleanser for my TBR because I don't have anything sci-fi on there right now, so we're going to read this and see how it goes. Okay, now to roll for my second wild, and again, we want anything but a 6. And we got a 5, which, I mean, is technically anything but a 6, so, I mean, I suppose the die listened to me, but I don't know why it's decided I need to read 22 books in the month of January. So, an update. If I pull a yellow 8, I have a punishment, which could literally be to throw out my entire TBR and start over, which would make me cry. It could be to not read any sequels, which would mean anything that I have mentioned that is part of a series. It can even be the first in a series, but if it's part of a series, I can't read it. However, if I manage to draw a 6, not only do I get to skip a prompt, but my reward is to either add a reward or remove a punishment, and you know what I'm going to do. So, Wild 2, draw 1. It's a blue 12. The prompt for blue 12 is cover similar to the last book I read. So the last book I finished at the time of recording this is Bullets and Silver, which is the second book in the Kayla Marlowe series. And as you can see, we have a pretty blue and purple sky. We have a lone figure holding something over their shoulder. We have some mountains in the distance. So I'm going to go with the Library of Legends, because as you can see, we have a pretty blue and purple sky. We have a single figure holding something over their shoulder and mountains in the distance. I think this is pretty close to a cover with like the same vibes, although the books are very different. Because this is following Hu Lian, and she is in the city of Nanking when Japanese bombs begin falling on it in 1937. And so she and her classmates walk 1,000 miles to the safety of China's western province. And they have been entrusted with a priceless treasure, a 500-year-old collection of myths and folklore known as the Library of Legends. And so they have to protect that and figure out a way to do that in the midst of what sounds like a war-torn area. I am very, very curious about this book. It sounds quite interesting. And I think the cover is really, really close to the last book I read. Although, like I said, very different vibes of the actual content of the book. Wild 2, draw 2. It's a blue 1. And the prompt for blue 1 is set outside the US and the UK. So for this one, I'm going to go with No Place Like Home. And we're following Lan, who is a recent immigrant to Canada from Vietnam. So she lives in Canada, which is not the US, and she ends up going to the magical world of Silva, which is the fantasy world of the latest book that she's reading. So this is a portal fantasy that's going to follow Lynn as she delves into this book, but I think, 1, that is not in the US or the UK, and 2, our main character lives in Canada, which is set outside of the US or UK, so I think this is going to work really well for this. I thought this sounded quite interesting. It gives me Pages and Co. vibes with the idea that you can book wander into books, although she did not know she could do this, and I don't think it was intentional or passed down the way it is with Tilly from Pages and Co. But I'm very curious to see what happens when Lynn arrives in her favorite book and how she handles being in a completely different world. Wild 2, draw 3. It's yellow 12. Y'all, I'm terrified every time I see the color yellow. And the prompt for yellow 12 is animal on the cover. So for animal on the cover, I'm going to read A Lots Away. So there's all of these animals down here, I think. Well, actually, they're all over. Oh, wow. I didn't even notice them up here at first. So yes, there's animals all over this cover. I've heard really, really amazing things about this book. It says, imagine an America very similar to your own. It's got homework, best friends, and pistachio ice cream. There are some differences. This America has been shaped dramatically by the magic, monsters, knowledge, and legends of its peoples, those indigenous and those not. Some of those forces are charmingly everyday, like the ability to make an orb of light appear or travel across the world through rings of fungi. But other forces are less charming and should never see the light of day. A Lots Away lives in this slightly stranger America. She can raise the ghosts of dead animals, a skill passed down through generations of her Lipan Apache family. Her beloved cousin has just been murdered in a town that wants no prying eyes. The picture-perfect facade of Willoughby masks gruesome secrets, and she will rely on her wits, skills, and friends to tear off the mask and protect her family. Very, very curious to see how this plays out. Like I said, I've heard really, really good things about it, and, well, there's more animals on the cover than I originally thought when I looked at this, so I think this is perfect for this prompt. Wild 2, draw 4. Green 1. And the prompt is fire on the cover or in the title. For this, I'm going to read Tales of the Greek Heroes because our guy is holding a what looks to be torch full of fire, and these look like flames, which is also fire. These are a retelling of Greek heroes. We're going to hear about Zeus, Hades, Artemis, Aphrodite, and many more. And it has an introduction by Rick Riordan. Very excited to get to this one, and very curious to see Rick Riordan's introduction and to see if I learn anything new in this book that I haven't learned by reading all of Rick Riordan's works, which are very based in the Greek heroes. And here we are again. As long as this is not a yellow 8 or a wild, I'm done. Wild 2, draw 5. I don't understand. I swear I did not plan this. I shuffled the cards. What is this? What is this game this month? Wild 2, draw 5, part 2 is blue 12, not a yellow 12, a blue 12. And the prompt for blue 12 is romance. So for this, I'm going to read Stars in Your Eyes by Case and Calendar. This follows Logan, who is Hollywood's bad boy, and Maddie, an up-and-coming golden boy. But Logan claims that Matt has zero talent, sending the film's publicity into nosedive. To create a positive buzz, the two of them start fake dating, but real feelings start to develop, and they have to figure out a way to fight for their relationship that is now real, despite the public scrutiny. I am very, very curious about this one. I like a fake dating trope in my romances. I've liked the other books I've read by Case and Calendar, so I'm hoping this one is as enjoyable as some of the others I've read. Okay, so we're going to roll for my Wild 3, and I would like a 1. Please, just a 1. Okay, a 2. Not a 1. But it's better than a 5 or 6. Wild 3, draw 1. See, red 12. And the prompt for red 12 is a random genre wheel. So I have pulled up a wheel. On this wheel, we have classic, contemporary, mystery, sci-fi, fantasy, romance, thriller, nonfiction, and historical fiction, as those are all the kind of main genres that are popping into my head right now that I read. We're going to spin the wheel, see what I get, and see what kind of book I'm going to be reading. Come on, come on. Oh, contemporary. I can do that. I was so worried it was going to land on classic. So for this, I'm going to read The Vanderbeekers to the Rescue. This is the third book in the Vanderbeeker series. This follows the 5 Vanderbeeker children, and I've loved the first 2 books. I'm absolutely stoked to be diving back into this series. It is such a brilliant, easy to read series. It's full of fun family vibes, and I'm very curious to see what sort of shenanigans the Vanderbeeker crew get up to in this one. And unless this is a wild or a yellow 8, I am done. Wild 3, draw 2. Oh, I'm so scared. I saw the 8. It took way too long for my brain to register it was a blue 8 and not a yellow one. Library book. I couldn't have gotten an easier prompt. For this, I'm going to read Go the Distance by Jen Calanita. This is the next book in the Twisted Tales series. I've requested it from my library, so it seems like a no-brainer to put this on my TBR since it is absolutely a library book, and it is a book I need to get to anyway. So that is going to be my last book for this awful round of Phase 10 Choose my TBR. So there you have it. There are the 23 books I have to read to complete my TBR in the month of January. I have a feeling that this orange piece of paper is going to get a companion. Although now I have an incentive, because if I can finish my TBR, I can take that off and swap it out for a reward next month, which is very, very tempting. So we're going to see how things go. I was so excited to play Phase 10 and see what this year had in store for me, and it went... all of the books. What we have in store for you is all of the books. So, yeah. Send me some positive thoughts for speedy reading times and no slumps. I have no words. I don't think this has ever been that mean to me. And if I had known it was going to do this, I'd have used my skip. But hindsight's 2020. Well, that's going to be all from me for this round of Phase 10 Chooses My TBR. All of my social media is linked in the description below if you'd like to come chat with me. If you've made it this far in the video, leave me purple heart emojis, because purple is my favorite color and I need some love. Like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!